10 a.m. on the West Coast, 1 p.m. on the East Coast. You're live with the guy. Today's top stories: Ron DeSantis focuses on the hurricane, not politics, as Hurricane Milton approaches Florida. Kamala Harris's 60 Minutes interview went extremely horrible for her. We'll look at a couple clips on that. Then Elon Musk, what if Trump doesn't win the election? He had some hilarious takes as he sat down with Tucker Carlson. Then the Supreme Court hears arguments against redefinition of firearms. This is in regards to ghost guns and other firearms parts such as receivers and things like this. And then Trump's grassroots support. It seems to be amping up, and we'll look into that. And final story is Mexicans moving back to Mexico. Okay, let's start with this. Ron DeSantis focuses on the hurricane and not politics. We'll watch an interview he did at a press conference. I guess you would call it a press conference, not an interview.
Commensurate to the threat that it poses to the state, but particularly to that region.
A White House spokesperson said that you turned down calls from both Biden and Harris. Are you saying you're not aware of that? And if so, how are you not aware of that?
So Biden called me a couple days ago with Helene when I was on the helicopter. I didn't have any issues. They had helped us with what we've done. I'm not aware that he's tried to call since then. Certainly hasn't called my phone, so I don't know quite where they're getting that information. At the same time, we got the approvals that we need. If there's something else.
So Kamala Harris keeps referring to Ron DeSantis not picking up the phone when she called. He's saying he never called her, he never called him, or not, at least not his phone. So maybe she called somebody in his administration, and she just wants to frame this in a political manner, saying she's trying to get a hold of him. She's trying to help. In reality, I don't think she's trying to get in direct contact with him. She is the vice president. She should have his cell phone number. Let's continue.
That we need, I'll hop on the phone very quickly, whether that's a FEMA administrator or the president, and we will press the case to be able to get approvals for what we need in Florida. But we have gotten approvals for everything that we've asked for.
Code in this area?
The NBC story is false as far as Harris and you go.
I didn't know that she had called, so I'm not sure who they called. They didn't call me, and their characterization of it was something that they did. It wasn't anything that anybody in my office did in terms of saying that it was political.
Given the severity of the storm, since I did want to ask you about politics right now in terms of should
I don't really want to answer questions about this. Is not a time for politics. No, excuse me, Gary. You and your publication will twist anything that's done to try to make a political agenda. That's what you do. That's how you get your clicks. I understand that. I understand that's the business model. Well, but I don't want to talk about politics because, but I have a feeling that however you do, you guys will find a way to frame it. That's just your shtick. I get it. It's fine. But I don't want to participate in it. We have had to respond to a Category 4 hurricane. We've had to prepare and now respond to something that may hit as a major hurricane, may be Category 4, may even be bigger than that. We hope that it does, but that should be the focus. And I think some of these questions are trying to create some type of political angle where there's just none there. What we've asked for has been approved. You're not seeing me out there carping or complaining about anything. We have gotten what we.
Okay, so there we see Ron DeSantis talking to a reporter, much in the way Trump did, which is good. Put him in his place, not wanting to play politics in a natural disaster. Ron DeSantis is also saying Florida is getting everything they've requested from the Biden administration, which is good to hear because we know North Carolina has not gotten everything they've asked for. And with another hurricane approaching, it looks like this one may just hit Florida alone, and it looks like it may be a class 4. A few days ago, I was seeing this hurricane ramp up in the Gulf of Mexico, and the projections were it would die down by the time it hit Florida. It looks like now that may not be the case. Okay, next we're going to go into Kamala Harris and her 60-minute interview. We have a couple clips. 60 Minutes is notorious for hitting smaller channels with copyright strikes, so I may pause this quite a bit and talk over it.
Let me tell you what your critics and the columnists say.
Okay.
They say that the reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so many things. You were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare for all, now you're not.
Pause it.
So many that
So this is a really good question. And a lot of these 60-minute questions were good questions. Let's see her answer.
People don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for. And I know you've heard that.
In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States. And I have been traveling our country. And I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground. I believe in building consensus. We are a diverse people, geographically, regionally, in terms of where we are in our backgrounds. And what the American people do want is that we have leaders who can build consensus.
She says we're a diverse people. It's because the Democrats have not crafted a unified American identity. When immigrants traditionally immigrate to America, they're expected to have an American identity and adopt a lot of the policies and things of the culture. This is no longer happening. That's why it's so diverse, and that's why there's so much animosity in so many different parts of the country. She's using a word salad in order to not answer the question.
Where we can figure out compromise and understand it's not a bad thing, as long as you don't compromise your values, to find common sense solutions. And that has been my approach.
Okay, I don't know how many common sense solutions she has. She can't even answer a simple question. This is traditionally what happens when Kamala Harris is asked a tough question. That's why she stayed away from these kind of interviews. I do like to see the fact that there was actually somebody that gave her a real interview and that she was brave enough to do it. Now, I don't know if she thought the interview would go this way. She thought it was going to be a lot more friendly, but this close to the election now, I think this is the last opportunity for some of these liberal media conglomerates to jump ship and come over to Trump, because if they don't do it now, it's going to be limited access to the president, and there may be all kinds of different laws put upon the media in the coming administration. We'll have to see, because the amount of bias the liberal media has done over the two Trump or the one Trump administration and the other 4 years where he wasn't in office, but they just kept hitting him for some reason. He wasn't even the president, yet they couldn't help but talk about him every single day. Okay, I think we have one more Kamala Harris clip.
I've been covering the border for years. And so I know this is not a problem that started with your administration.
Correct.
But there was an historic flood of undocumented immigrants coming across the border the first 3 years of your administration. As a matter of fact, arrivals quadrupled from the last year of President Trump.
Again, another great question from 60 Minutes. Completely surprised me. Now, are they trying to show that they can give a tough interview with Kamala Harris, trying to lure Trump into an interview just before the election? If Trump is smart, he won't go on 60 Minutes. He's in a good position. If anybody wants to go on 60 Minutes, let J.D. Vance do it. Okay, let's continue.
Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem. And solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
What I was asking was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think the policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem. Okay?
But the numbers did quadruple.
And
it's interesting how she frames this. This is about fixing a problem. The problem for her is that it's not a completely wide open border. That's what she wants, and that's what she got in the first 3 years of the administration. Now it's this last year. She's trying to readopt Trump's old policies to fix the border. She already had them in the beginning of the administration. They literally had to repeal every single policy in order to get the border as bad as it was. I think she thought she had fixed the problem because they had a wide open border. It's now a problem because she needs to win an election, and people don't like to see what's happened to the U.S. border. Massive amounts of criminals flooding over.
Numbers today, because of what we have done, we have cut the flow of illegal immigration by half.
We have cut
the flow of fentanyl by half, but we need Congress to be able to act to actually fix the problem.
okay, this is not a Congress problem. This is a administration problem. And she seems to be the one heading up the administration, seen as Biden's senile and not even in the White House a lot of the time. Now, all she needs to do to fix the problem is go to Biden and say, sign these executive orders. That's how Trump fixed it. Trump fixed the border through executive orders, not Congress. He would have had it fixed and airtight if Congress would have helped him out. But we know what happened in the first Trump administration. The rhinos and the Democrats teamed up to lock Donald Trump out and make sure he couldn't get a lot of his policies through. And not to the final few years was he actually able to get a few things through. Okay, now we're going to go to Elon Musk on what if Trump doesn't win the election? This first clip is extremely funny, and I added it in. Pardon the language.
If he loses, man, what? You're fucked, dude.
I'm fucked. If he loses, I'm fucked.
It does seem that way. You can't just be like, yo,
Yeah, I'm like, how long do you think my prison sentence is going to be? Do you think? Will I see my children? I don't know.
Because it's not like you can say, well, yeah, I maxed out to him, but, you know, I get...
I have no plausible deniability. No, and I've been trashing Kamala nonstop.
Oh, I know.
Well, not having the Kamala puppet, I call her, you know. The machine that the Kamala puppet represents.
Oh, yeah, that was an absolutely fantastic clip. They were completely natural. This is unrehearsed. They're just going off the cuff. Talking about, yeah, I talk so much shit about Kamala Harris. I'm going to prison for life. I probably will never see my kids again if Trump doesn't win. He's really aligned himself with Trump. And one of the big reasons he did it was the transing of one of his children. It really was the beginning of the red pill for Elon Musk. And then it just snowballed from there. He is one of the biggest MAGA supporters. And lucky for him, it looks like Trump may win in a landslide. I don't know what the U.S. government's going to do if Kamala does win, because they have to work with Elon Musk. The next best rocket agency is not NASA, but Blue Origins, and that's owned by Amazon. And all they did to create their company was steal a bunch of people from SpaceX and try to steal the technology. They used the Chinese model to build Blue Origin, when the only real innovator is Elon Musk in that industry. That's why they need him to be there. Okay, there's a second clip I have from Musk, and it's also, again, from the Tucker interview. I don't think much is repeated, but maybe a little bit.
I mean, my view is that if Trump doesn't win this election,
turn it up if you can.
It's the last election we're going to have. The Democrats, the Dem machine, has been importing so many people, bringing in so many illegals, flying in with this like CBP border app thing that nobody even knew about, like secret program. That's illegal, basically. It's illegal, but there's no action by the DOJ to actually to stop it from happening. They're transporting large numbers of illegals to swing states. If you look at the numbers, these are the numbers from the government website. So, like from the Democrat-administered government websites. Like, where do you get this data? From the government website that is run by Democrats. There are triple-digit increases in illegals to all the swing states. And in some cases, it's like 700% over the last 3 years. Now, these swing state margins are, sometimes 10, 20,000 votes. So what happens if you put, hundreds of thousands of people into each swing state? And when somebody is granted asylum, they are fast-tracked. They can get a green card, and then 5 years after the green card, they can get citizenship, and they can fully legally vote. And when they do so, they vote overwhelmingly Democrat. And sometimes they get this rebuttal of like, well, a lot of them, their social values don't align with sort of the far left sort of woke ideology. Yeah. I said that's true, but that's not their top priority. Their top priority is getting their friends and family also to the United States. And the Dems also issue all these programs, these sort of handouts, essentially, that make them beholden to the Democratic Party. So they vote down.
And that's Elon Musk spitting facts. The fact is that legal immigrants typically vote Republican. A small minority of those people will actually vote Democrat. But traditionally, many legal immigrants come from countries that have traditional conservative values. illegal immigrants came from the same places, but they traditionally vote Democrat because the only way to get their friends and their family into the country is through the Democratic Party because they're not willing to go through the legal immigration process. And this is a huge issue in the United States. They're trying to gerrymander these districts and bring massive amounts of illegal immigrants in to change the voting. Now, a lot of these illegal immigrants that came in on this last wave through the Biden administration don't yet have citizenship. It takes 5 years. So 5 years for an illegal immigrant to illegally cross the border until they get legalized and they can vote. So they've only had 4 years. This is a big issue because if they do vote or they try to allow these people to vote illegally, it may be uncovered and it will be a huge scandal. At this point, Trump is starting to run away with the elections, especially in the polls when you account for poll bias. So if Kamala Harris magically gets a bunch of votes, we want to be looking at illegal aliens as well as dead voters. These are the two areas where you might be able to magically make votes appear where they shouldn't normally appear. Okay, let's go to the Supreme Court. Here's arguments against the redefinition of firearms. This primarily has to do with ghost guns and different parts of guns. So if you only own the handle or the receiver or a different part of a gun, right now you're not considered to have a gun. You actually have to have the entire gun assembled or have all the parts available to you before you can have a gun charge. Now, if you're manufacturing guns through 3D printing and things like this, they want to be able to charge you with having a gun. This was a big issue on gun buybacks. When the government comes in and says, we'll buy back your guns, there was a couple good scams where some people made a few $100,000 by printing up these little tiny guns that barely even worked and turning them in as a gun buyback. So it cost them 50 cents to make, and they were able to get it bought from them for thousands of dollars, which this was a scandal at the time. But ghost guns, they're putting people away right now for ghost guns under laws that shouldn't apply to ghost guns. Now, whether you believe in firearms or not, this really comes into what should a person be able to manufacture on their own and own? If somebody manufactures something, can they own it? The closest thing to a gun would be a knife. Right now, if you manufacture a knife, you don't have to register a knife. The knife is yours. You can use it. Now, with a gun, this is something they don't want you to be able to manufacture on your own. This goes into freedoms. As much as I think it is a danger for people to have ghost guns, if everybody in the society is armed, knows how to use a gun, and they carry a gun, if somebody pulls out a shitty ghost gun, other people that are standing around have the opportunity to pull out a real gun and really put them down, or at least tell them to put down the ghost gun. A ghost gun is not going to compare in design or in utilization to a real gun. The best way to prevent people from using ghost guns is to have mass adoption of guns with your population. Before, back in the 70s and before that, people used to bring guns to school. They used to have gun education classes. They used to have shooting classes within high schools. People were extremely adept to having guns. They've tried to outlaw more and more. We see school shootings. They happen at schools because these are gun safe zones. Nobody's allowed to have a gun there. The security's not allowed to have a gun. The teachers aren't allowed to have a gun. Nobody. So it's a free-for-all for a mass shooter to go in there with guns, and they know nobody's really going to fight back. It's going to be interesting to see this. This is just the hearing today, so I'm going to look more into this, and I'm very interested to see the arguments they're going to use if they're able to redefine what a gun is in any way, shape, or form. These laws are immediately going to be used against the general public in the United States. The public has a Second Amendment right to bear arms, and they should not be infringed upon. We're seeing mass shooters that are stealing their parents' weapons, bringing them to school, doing a mass shooting, and now their parents are being charged with allowing them to have the gun when they didn't even give them the gun. They stole the gun from their parents. This is a little bit a step too far. Okay, now we're going to go into Trump's grassroots support. We'll play a video here real quick.
The more that a broken system tells you that you're wrong, the more certain you should be that you must keep pushing ahead. because it's the outsiders who change the world and who make a real and lasting difference. Nothing worth doing ever came easy. Treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. The future belongs to the people who follow their heart no matter what the critics say. We must always remember that we share one home and one glorious destiny. We all bleed the same red blood of patriots. We all salute the same great American flag. Our best days are yet to come.
Okay, that video was a couple years old, but I chose that one because it was only a minute long. It would be quick to show, and it's just an example of many things that are happening right now. We're having music videos, inspirational speeches, inspirational videos, independent news shows, and ordinary citizens posting their thoughts and opinions of Trump, which is powerful because people used to be scared to align themselves with Trump or to speak good about Trump. It's completely the opposite now. People are coming out in mass and supporting Trump and the Trump movement. So this is a huge indicator of where the polls and where the American people are really at. I am expecting a landslide election in November. It's less than 30 days away, I believe, and I can't wait to see what happens. But to see ordinary people posting videos on their thoughts on not only Trump, but on Harris. And when they're posting these things on Harris, they're not looking good. These things are being posted in mass. I've never seen an election like this before. I remember with Obama, he ran a very good campaign about hope and change, but it was very orchestrated. Trump supporters like me, like Nat, are just picking up cameras and talking and going through his policies, going through Harris's policies, exposing what it is. I may only have a viewership of 2,500, 2,600, whatever it is, but that 2,600 people can be impactful when there's 10,000 other people just like me, all having 1,000 or 2,000 people listening to them. People like to hear from ordinary people. They don't want to hear from Taylor Swift. They don't want to hear from some billionaire elite on telling them how to vote like Mark Cuban. Okay. So we'll go into the last story. This was a story I just casually I watched on YouTube today, and I thought I'd mention it. Mexicans moving back to Mexico. As we all know, under the Biden administration, the United States is falling apart. It's falling apart on its moral values. It no longer has conservative values. It has these extraordinarily progressive liberal values, and it doesn't align with traditional Mexican families and things like this, or many immigrant families. You're seeing not just Mexico, but a lot of places, people moving back to their home country. But this is happening in mass in Mexico right now because people are just fed up with these U.S. policies. A lot of them, these are second generation Mexicans in the United States where their families from Mexico, but they were born in the States. They figure, why not move to Mexico? And if things get better in the States, I can just move back. And I can tell you, I live in Mexico now, and it's a great place to live. I like it much better than Canada. Some things may be worse. A lot of things are better, but the government doesn't infringe upon you to the level that the U.S. and Canadian government do. Mexico is a good place, and if you're thinking about moving to Mexico, I would highly recommend it. Okay, I guess that's all I had for today. We're not going to have a show tonight. Our nightly show is usually me and Nat. It's called Live with Nat and the Guy. It's at 4 p.m. On the West Coast, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. But Nat's got an interview today. It's actually her first interview. It's going to be in Spanish language. We'll promote it on our next video, but there will be no show tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Adios.